I like this kit. It's got beautiful colors, the OSD is a very welcomed addition, and since this is laminated, I don't have to worry about any more misaligned screens and any stupid fingerprints underneath any lenses. This kit is very promising, but I still have some problems with it. I am going to do a tutorial for you guys, don't worry, but I want to do my review first. I think that everyone should hear my experience before installation, whether or not you already bought this kit. So let's just jump into it. Retro Game Repair Shop sent this to me for free for review, and I started on my tutorial immediately. Everything went well until I was greeted with this when I turned it on. Now, originally, I had taped down the touch sensor, and you're actually supposed to hold it down by the foam. Either way, I still had the same result when I did it correctly. I call these phantom touches. I did a lot of testing and researching, trying to figure out why this was happening, and unfortunately, I just didn't find much. I did find one guy on Reddit who had the exact same issue as me, and a couple others who had similar issues. I told RGRS everything I know and everything I did, and they relayed that to Funny Playing. Funny Playing suggested cutting the touch sensor in half, but by the time I had heard back, I just cut it clean off, which was all fine and dandy until it happened again while I was shooting B-roll with no touch sensor at all. So RGRS sent out a replacement and I got right back to work. Unfortunately, it happened again immediately before I even fully installed it. So I trimmed it down like Funny Playing said, and I haven't had any issues with it since. But 1 for 2 wasn't good enough for me, so I bought a third kit and tried again. This time it was completely normal. I didn't even have to trim the touchpad. I've had 0 issues. Now I'd like to clarify, this isn't a constant issue, but it does happen in certain scenes in certain games. It can be extremely annoying when it happens, and since it happens consistently while in 2 of the most popular GBA games, I absolutely had to bring this one up. So now we're 2 for 3. And with only a few other people on Reddit having similar issues, I'll let you guys decide whether or not it's worth the gamble. But if you're gonna do the soldering for this kit anyways, just cut off the touch sensor. It's redundant. No matter what, I think there needs to be another revision to take care of this issue. I say another because this kit already shipped incomplete the first time. In my opinion, as someone who's not an engineer, I think the sensitivity of the touchpad is way too high, and everything would probably be solved by making it less sensitive, or just by removing it because touchpads suck and soldering's not that hard. Hot take. It's a good skill to learn anyways. But unfortunately, that wasn't my only problem. I know. I am Mr. Broken Screw Post, and I know user error is no one's fault but mine. Unless it was you that had the user error, it's not my fault, it's your fault. However, I think that Funny Playing should rethink the design of the shell. I unfortunately did not catch this on camera, but essentially, I didn't have the bracket in the perfect position. It put way too much pressure on the screw posts. I didn't notice it, and when I was screwing the back half down, the right side of the motherboard popped up, which threw off my angle while I was screwing in the black Phillips screw, and I broke that bottom screw post. Luckily, superglue fixed all of that, but when the last screw post cracked, it somehow split the shell in half. Again, user error, but if the shell had more surface area down there like many other shells, I don't think it would have snapped in half like that. This worries me because it could break easier than other shells if dropped or even in shipping, which got me thinking, why is the shell designed like this? I know it has to be designed differently because of the laminated screen lens, but why not do a design like the laminated GBC? Both kits have screens that stick out past the screen lens, both have room for double-sided tape on the lens, so why is this one designed so differently? I know, I'm far from an engineer, but if you had a shell design that had you stick it down to the shell and everything as a whole would be a lot more rigid. I think it would also make installation even easier because you also wouldn't have to make an annoying bracket to keep the screen in place. And since Funny Playing just released new shells that work with multiple screen kits, I don't understand why they wouldn't just add another breakaway section that would fit the laminated kit. That way they only have one mold for all of their shells for all of their kits that is still structurally sound. But again, I'm not an engineer, maybe it's just not possible. If you made the hole big enough to fit the screen in, everything would rest in fine. And you wouldn't have to keep making the special screen lenses either. It just makes a lot of sense in my head. So those are my 2 biggest issues with that kit. I mean, I do wish it was a little brighter, but again, I like this kit. And I do truly want this to be the kit of the future, but I would like to see some changes before I make this my go-to kit. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating, or maybe it's just me and my luck. But this whole experience has been kind of annoying, and trying to make this video for the past month has been really stressful. I know some of you aren't going to agree with me on this, and that's totally fine. The reason I said all of this the way that I did was because it didn't feel right just saying, oh, I broke a screw post and the shell cracked and I had some touchpad issues, but it's fine because I don't know. Only time will tell, and hopefully the comments. But anyways, here's a quick and dirty tutorial. We're just completely redoing this. I'm gonna assume that you've done a GBA mod or you've at least done some modding before. Once this kit has an inevitable revision, I will redo this in a full in-depth tutorial. But for now, if you're new to all this, this might not be the best tutorial for you. I am very blown out all of a sudden. Remove these 6 tri-wing screws. Then there's one more Phillips head screw down here. Take the back half off. Obviously, this will look different for you if you're starting from scratch with an unmodded Game Boy. Still, remove your 2 or 3 Phillips head screws here. Unplug the ribbon cable by lifting up the 2 tabs. Pull up on your motherboard and pull out. I'm going to assume that you've cleaned your motherboard or you know how to clean the motherboard. Use IPA, I prefer 99%, and I have a short on this, but I highly recommend cleaning your power switch. Like I said in the review part, you do need a special shell for the special kit. Again, I wish they did this differently. You're gonna take the screen and the ribbon cable, and you're gonna plug it in like this. Be careful because this ribbon cable is really flimsy, and this one is also very flimsy. Probably could have waited to plug in the screen, but let's do some soldering. And again, I'm gonna assume you've soldered before, so I'll go through this pretty fast. Tip down, push solder into tip, lift up. Beautiful solder ball. Do that 2 more times on these 2 pads. Look at that. Perfect. Your kit should come with 3 wires like this. I'm actually gonna flip this around the other way because this is going to be the way that it rests in your console. And like the other kits, I recommend soldering the L wire to the right side, the R wire to the left side, and select back to the left. Now I'm done soldering for now because I'm going to install this into the shell. I feel like this is the easiest part to do it. There is no insulating film with this kit, at least as of right now. And to help with all the problems I had, I just covered this in Kapton tape. If the ribbon cable is going to rest there, it's covered in Kapton tape. It's kind of redundant because I have it on the back of the screen and I've got it on the ribbon cable. I also highly recommend either cutting or covering the other pins. Cover these pins because if these short out on anything, it's going to be a bad day for you. This is the old bracket. It still works just fine. I really don't know why they changed it. This is what the new bracket looks like, by the way, and it should go in this orientation. So we're gonna slide all this business through the big gaping hole. We're just gonna drop this down into the hole. There are beveled edges to keep it into place so it doesn't fall through the other side. Before we get too much further, I'm gonna cut the touchpad off. If for some reason you absolutely want the stupid touchpad, you can cut the foam like this. You're gonna wanna trap the touchpad underneath so it's touching the screen lens and so it's covered by the foam, kind of like that. And then I'll show you how to put the bracket on in a second. But right now, I'm gonna cut this sucker off. Bye-bye. No need to have it at all. To install the bracket of it, there's a little tab up here that can go underneath this middle post. And there's 2 little notches that you can fit the bracket into near the screw posts. And then you can just put the bracket down. I'm gonna route all of these wires through here. And then I'm just using the Kapton tape that I had here to secure it down to this bracket. Just makes everything a lot easier. Then you can put your foam down on top. That way, this will prevent anything from shorting here, but we're gonna hold off on that for now because we're gonna finish the soldering up. By the way, this bracket does not clip down, and when you do have that foam down there, it can get quite annoying. But I think we will actually put the foam back down there just in case, because I think it might still help keep the screen lens down. Can you see how this is annoying even without breaking the screw post down here? From here, we're gonna take our wires and solder them to the correct test pads. TP9 is the test pad for L, TP8 is the test pad for R, and TP2 is the test pad for select. None of those were the best, but that's all right. I'm gonna put some flux down on each of those pads. Grab the wire for L, solder that down. Grab your wire for select, solder that down. Grab your wire for R and solder that down. I'm gonna get one more piece of Kapton tape to hold all of these wires down on the CPU chip. Just make sure all of your wires are out of the way of any screw holes. Now we can finish putting our buttons in. I'm sure you can figure that puzzle out. I just like to do the D-pad start select in A and B because L and R and the side posts, the power switch, they're probably gonna get knocked around anyways. Now here's where I recommend lifting the whole thing up and making sure everything is flat when you fold it over and put the motherboard down. Forgot my foam, kind of important. Everything should fit in nice and neatly. We put the ribbon cable back in, or in for the first time for you guys. And we can very carefully screw everything down. Make sure everything is nice and flush and flat before you get too far, because that's where everything went wrong with this guy. This is pretty flat. It's still a little loose down here, but I think that's just inevitable. Might help once we've got it fully secured. Now you can put in the side pieces, your L and your R, and your power switch. Carefully put this down. Still make sure everything is all flat and clicked in. Then here, I recommend keeping everything really flat. Carefully screw down the Phillips screw. I like to keep it nice and flat while I swap bits, and then I do the top 2 screws before I let go. Now there's an even-ish amount of pressure on the top and the bottom. Do the 2 bottom screws, then finish it up with the middle 2. And don't over tighten anything. Put the batteries in. Voila. Thanks for subscribing. I'm doing this in my stream setup and everything's good, I hope. We'll see. And one more thing, I do wish these got a little bit brighter, but other than that, the screen is honestly pretty freaking good. And these are my preferred settings. So like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later, guys. Why do I sound like Shed?